What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason and Joe here, coming at you with another album ranking, another one chosen by our patrons. Pretty much the vast majority of them are now, except for our surprise Lemon Twigs ranking. If you missed that, go check it out. Today we're ranking the 9 studio albums of Ween.
You bastards.
Yeah, this should be interesting. I suspect that no one else expects you to like Ween. I am curious though at how hard you go in against them, or if they win you over at all. I knew a little bit of Ween before this. The Mollusk I'd heard, and maybe like an assortment of other tracks. I listened to Quebec too for the 2003 deep dive. I do kind of gravitate towards some of this like more oddball type of stuff, bands like They Might Be Giants and things like that. I'm a fan of, and I don't think you are. So I will do my best to make this not an entirely negative video.
Well, sir, let's not count our hatred before it hatches. There's a chance I could like something here.
Well, I will say this: when we were discussing side threes, Joe did offer up the worst bands of all time as the topic. So maybe that's a decoy.
I hear they're good live.
Yeah, that's we got some super fans in our community, so they were talking up the live stuff. Didn't get to it, but maybe someday. All right, ready to dive in? You want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I can start this off. I'm going to start with the pod. It is, it's one of the worst albums I've ever heard. One of the worst experiences. I don't know how bad it is on a technical level. I don't know how bad it is on, you know, these alternative albums. I don't know really what they're going for. And if the intent is to make just the most excruciating experience, one of the worst I've had listening to music in my life. They did a good job with this one. I would rather listen to the later period Boston records. Probably would rather listen to, Sonic Youth's No Wave phase again. The Tom Waits stuff that I hate. I just hate it. I don't like the music. I don't like the vocals, hate the production. The only reason I'm going half a star is Captain Fantasy, which is a pretty cool song, but it is just sticks out like I don't even know, Mount Everest against all this other stuff that I just cannot take. It's 76 minutes. It is so long. And it is just, yeah, one of the worst albums I think I've ever heard in my life, or at least one of the worst listening experiences. So half star for the pod.
All right. When's the last time you went that low? Wow.
It's I don't know, have I ever gone that low for an actual discography?
I don't
Like
think
maybe Sonic Youth? I might have gotten half a star for Sonic Youth.
Amagama, maybe.
Oh yeah, I'm a gamma. Yeah. I don't think we were doing star ratings back when we did Pink Floyd, but that's a half star.
All right. Number 9 for me is the album after the pod, Pure Guava. This was the last one that they recorded on 4-track. The Wikipedia said until La Cucaracha, although I couldn't confirm that La Cucaracha was recorded on 4-track. I know they like went back to New Hope and were like recording in a barn, but yeah, if someone knows, let me know because La Cucaracha sounds significantly better than these other early records. This one's down to a tight 19 tracks and 55 minutes after those first two super long records. This one, for me, was the roughest of those 3 early ones, though. I think the shtick here is wearing a little thin. A lot of it felt really kind of like sleepy and hazy. I don't know if that's like drug induced or what, but like the humor not really shining through much on this. Tracks like Tender Situation, I Play It Off Legit, Morning Glory, Loving You Through It All. Those tracks were pretty brutal. On Tender Situation, it sounds like the percussion and the guitar are playing like 2 different songs. They're not like staying together at all. It's just really bad. Yeah, it's a crazy, crazy time in the 90s where it's only in the 90s could this record have come out on a major label. totally insane. But you do have like glimmers of hope in this record. I think something like Sarah shows that they can write a tune. Yeah, but at this point, 3 records in, it's starting to feel like, all right, time to get it together. Enough dicking around. Are we ever gonna make anything that feels legitimate and not just like friends screwing around with the 4 track? So 3 records of it. By the time I got to this one, I was sick of it, and it wasn't as fun as the first two. So for me, I'm at 2 stars on Pure Guava.
Wow, 2 stars. Holy cow. Starting off hot. Pure Guava is my number 8. I think it's terrible, but I don't find it quite as annoying in its just the creation, the production, the playing. Like the pod was just like one note the entire time, and I hated it. This one at least has a little more variation in the sound. It's a lot shorter. I feel like they're trending in the right direction a little bit because some of these songs are bad instead of unlistenable, like Little Birdie. I kind of thought maybe this album wouldn't suck when I put it on, but it ended up sucking. I don't mind Tender's Situation, some of the early tracks, something like The Stallion, and it's like modified, modulated vocals, that phaser on the guitar. At least it's kind of interesting. Push Little Daisies, like you can see, okay, maybe they're doing a little satire, a little spoof on pop music. I don't like it, but at least I kind of can see where they're going. I don't find any of this funny or amusing or like clever in any way, so that hurts it. The only track that I really thought was cool and showed promise was Sarah. Sounded a lot like a modern like bedroom pop album, to be honest. That guitar tone, the whatever they do with the vocals, pretty cool. But everything else, just some of the worst music I've ever heard, and I'm gonna go 1 star. So we are trending in the right direction at least. 1 star.
All right. Well, I'm staying at 2 stars for my number 8, and that is the debut GodWeenSatan. 29 tracks, an hour, 16 minutes. It's very unfocused, skipping between genres at a whim, but that is, I think, the point. It's impossible on this record to tell how talented they are. It's impossible to tell how serious they are, without the context of future Ween albums. Hearing this in 1990 must have been just like completely disorienting. There's very few songs here that I would call good. Don't Laugh, I Love You is catchy. There's some cool guitar sprinkled throughout on stuff like Stacy and Papa's It and Squelch the Weasel have some pretty nice guitar work. It seems like they're having fun though. I'm drawn to the spirit of it more than I am like Pure Guava. I like the stupidity on display here. They're just having fun, and yeah, I think that translates to the listener more than anything here. It's a good intro to like the personality of the band and what they're about conceptually. But it is at the same time a long and mostly tedious listen. So yeah, it's better than Pure Guava just for the energy and the spirit of it, but musically didn't connect with very much here.
No, I have that one at 1.5 stars. It is my number 7. I do actually kind of like the way it starts. If it was like an EP, maybe of like the first 7 songs, I think it would actually be pretty interesting. The fact that it keeps going for like an hour after that was the biggest problem for me. Stuff like Nicole at 9 minutes and 20 seconds is just horrific. But I like You Fucked Up. It's loud and obnoxious. But the guitar's like, it's pretty heavy, rambunctious. Reminded me a little bit of like the Stooges updated for the 90s, which I like the Stooges, so I was cool with that. You get some humor, some of their personality in a song like Tick. And I think it's actually a pretty good song. I like the screaming vocals. I like the unhinged guitars. Some of my favorite guitar moments in the whole discography, actually. It's a really cool 1 minute and 53 seconds. And I wish they had kept up that pace and that tempo because I want that. Like I much rather listen to something fast and messy and sloppy than like the slow plodding, like whatever juvenile poop humor of like 80% of this album, the brown energy, so-called brown energy. All the novelty stuff I do not enjoy very much. Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff here that works. Like Bumblebee sounds like Queens of the Stone Age as sung by Nick Oliveri, which was cool. Like I like hearing stuff like that where it's just like craziness and like pure, just like raw rock energy. And you just don't get nearly enough of that because you get all the goofy humor and stupid crap like that. So 1.5 stars, but I can see some promise in some of these. I can see why people, like them, why they were able to land a major label. Because there's some cool stuff here, but it's just so much crap. So much crap you gotta ship through.
All right. My number 7 is your least favorite, The Pod. Their second album in a row, clocking in at an hour and 16 minutes. Both Dean and Gene got mono during the making of the album, and allegedly they both huffed a lot of Scotch Guard. So it's a lot slower tempos here. Perhaps that's the huffing uh, having some effect. But I think it does have a more cohesive sound to these tracks. I think they all fit together a little better than the all over the place debut. I like the fuzziness of some of the songs here. I think it's a little warmer sounding than the kind of harsh distortion on the first record. I think Dr. Rock is pretty easily the best track here, but I also think Captain Fantasy pretty decent. The solo section on Demon Sweat is kind of badass as well. Pork Roll, Egg, and Cheese, I think, demonstrates their ability to craft a pretty convincing hook. It's maybe a little less fun than the first record, but it feels a little bit more crafted and a little more intentional. It's a little less insane. And I feel like if Godween and Satan kind of like supplied the raw materials for what Ween was going to be, then I think this is kind of like the first draft of them actually trying to figure out what to do with those ideas. Godween and Satan didn't feel like it was working towards anything. This at least does a little bit. I'm still at 2 stars though. I don't think the first 3 records are very good, but we will get some higher star ratings pretty quickly coming up.
All right, I'm still stuck in 2-star land with their last effort, La Cucaracha, which I did not enjoy, especially after at least the promise that they showed on their later albums. They bring back some of the annoying humor. I don't care for the music. I don't care for the way it sounds very much. Seems a little uninspired. The juvenile, vulgar lyrics are back in full force. The Fruit Man, that's a lemon. Really dislike with my own bare hands. I don't know what they're going for there. Spirit Walker, they bring in some auto-tune vocals. And I mean, I don't have a problem with the auto-tune vocals, but the track itself is pretty weak. The only one on here I like would be Sweetheart, kind of old school sounding pop track. Everything else, I don't know. There's like a little vaguely Latin flavor to some of these tunes, and uh, just nothing here I cared for at all. I just basically skipped through this one. Not a big fan of La Cucaracha. 2 stars.
Well, that's actually probably a more conventional number 6 pick. I think most Ween fans don't like that as much as all the other major label stuff, at least. I kind of liked La Cucaracha, so that's coming later for me. And my number 6 is actually Chocolate and Cheese. Still, even though number 6, I think it's significantly better than everything we've talked about so far. I have it at 3.5 stars. This is where they ditch the lo-fi stuff for some real production, and I think how that fits with their brand of writing is pretty interesting. I think having the more polished production gives everything a greater sense of intentionality, which I think allows me to enjoy both the music and the humor more. The fact that it seems to be on purpose now. I think it only helps it. And it makes some of their like little genre excursions feel a little bit more convincing as well. And it also blurs the line between sincerity and earnestness and satire, which I think also is just a really interesting thing about them, and where it's always like kind of hard to tell how serious they are about things and when they're poking fun at something and when they're actually like paying homage to something. I do think it's still a bit bloated though, and I think the production would continue to improve from this point on. I'm not crazy about like some of the drum machine sounds on this record. A track like Candy, I think Candy's like a pretty pointless song. It's like feels like filler on an already pretty long record, so I don't understand why those sorts of things need to be there. But I do think this record has some highlights. A Tear for Eddie, I think, of course, in tribute to Eddie Hazel. Has some great playing from Dean. And then you get a nice little run of tracks from there. You get Roses Are Free, Baby Bitch, and Mr. Would You Please Help My Pony, which I think makes for a really solid little stretch of the record. What Diener was talking about near the end, I think, is a nice little pop song as well. It's a shame that one's only 2 minutes. And then you have things like HIV Song, which didn't age well, but I would be lying if I didn't say it didn't crack me up. So 3.5 stars for Chocolate and Cheese. I think, they're dipping their toe into the world of like real studio and major label type stuff. And, you know, it's a good first effort in that world, but I think they get a bit better at it.
That's my fifth favorite Ween album. Favorite loosely, very loosely here. I have it at 2.5 stars though, so it is improving. There are some, some moments on this album, more than one, unlike the last couple albums, where it's just really just one song or two that didn't make me want to kill myself. Here, it's major label, so that's good. I don't like the singing though. They're very hit and miss for me as far as vocals go. And there's some decent guitar work. I don't like the drum machines very much. Kind of boring. I don't know why they would have that. Just lacking energy in general. Like give me some energy and power. They're all over the place. You have like a loungy tune like Take Me Away. You have the whatever, just one of the most messed up songs you'll ever hear in Spinal Meningitis, which one of my least favorite in the whole discography, although it has a decent guitar part. I hate that stupid little child and the messed up vocals and oh God, I hate it so much. Freedom of 76 is decent. It kind of sounds like if Sly and the Family Stone were a lousy band. Tear for Eddie's good though. I like the playing. There's no singing, that's a plus. There are some interesting, some legitimately good songs on here. It's not all just horrible stuff that makes my teeth itch, as one of our favorite Discord members would say. Something like Roses Are Free, where they do like that almost Camille Prince vocal is pretty cool. I like Baby Bitch. I hated Mr. Would You Please Have My Pony. That's one of my least favorite songs of all time as well. And I think as a whole, it's too much. Like either the song is just a huge stupid joke or like a genre excursion like Buenas Tardes Amigo or Voodoo Lady, which I don't like that much either. Or, loungy or whatever it is. It's just annoying to me. I don't take to any of this. I don't find any of it really funny. And so it makes like the good songs and like the good guitar work, like it's almost annoying because I have to sift through all this other crap to get to the good parts. So as an album experience, I did not like at all. But I mean, there's some decent songs on here, but none that made my top 10. So not that great anyway.
All right. Well, don't worry, everyone. I'm going up to 4 stars already.
That's insane to me.
My number
That's
five.
absolutely.
My number five is 4 stars, and it's White Pepper from 2000. This is like I don't know, it's kind of like their Beatles homage. At least the title is the White Album, Sergeant Pepper's smushed together. It's kind of got some psychedelic stuff on it, but I don't know if that much of it really sounds like the Beatles. But it's a really big sounding record. It's hard to believe that this is the same band that made those early records. Probably their most straightforward album. Probably a good starter record. If you've never listened to Ween before, this is kind of like a nice way to dip your toe in. Even if you don't, reminds me of like Apple Venus era XTC. Back to Bassam is a great spacey rock tune. The Grobe is a cool, super heavy, fuzzed out jam. Stay Forever is kind of like a breezy Heartland rock song. I also like Falling Out and She's Your Baby. Those are good tunes as well near the end of the record. But they can't resist the urge to include things like Stroker Ace and Ice Castles and just kind of like go off the rails a little from time to time, which holds it back from being like a really great record. It just kind of, I don't know. It's it's odd because I think one of the things holding this record back a little is that it's lacking a little bit of weenness. It's actually not doesn't have as much of their personality in it, so it feels a little, I don't know, lesser. But at the same time, there's moments where that oddness comes in or where they go off on this little tangent are actually kind of my least favorite parts of it. So yeah, I'm not sure there, but I do think there's some very strong stuff here, and I think it's well produced, and the songcraft is really good, and some interesting arrangements and song structures and things like that. So 4 stars for White Pepper.
You must have gone up on some of these albums, right? Like my number four. Are we at four already? Flying through this, thank God. Quebec. I got Quebec number four, dropping down from the deep dive when I had it at 3.5, down to three. First non-major release in a while. After their contract with Elektra expired, they went back to the independent label, but you can't really tell. Like it's a well-produced album. It sounds pretty big. Sounds pretty 2000s, it's not like some lo-fi record or anything. It's a big, nice, full record. It's not as jokey as a lot of their records, but it's definitely a little more jokey than White Pepper. So they're kind of going back a little bit to their old ways, but it's still pretty straightforward, I think, lyrically. It's not a lot of, toilet humor, juvenile, whatevers. I think it starts off really well. It's gonna be a long night, which has this nice Motorhead kind of flavor to it. Big mean guitar focused song sung by Dean, who channels Lemmy really well on that. Transdermal Celebration is another just, good strong rocker. And some other stuff like Chocolate Town I like. Nice smooth, almost countryish ballad. They just throw some swears in for the hell of it because they're Ween. But everything else, I don't know. I didn't hit me very well this time. Like something like Zoloft sounds decent, but I don't know. Just them spelling out Zoloft, Zoloft. It's just there's nothing here that makes me smile or tickles my fancy lyrically and musically. There's some good stuff, some good guitar work, good band work, but I don't know. I don't know why I'm supposed to like this. I don't know why I'm supposed to like these songs other than the couple strong ones. Nothing else hit at all. So down from 3.5 to three. It's a pretty, I don't know, mediocre at best album, I think.
Some people predicted that we would have a bifecta with each of us having 12 golden country greats at the top, but we will not. It is my number 4. This is one that I had known before doing the dive, and I like it. I think it's a pretty cool record. It's a little detour in their catalog. I actually thought this came later. I was surprised when I found out that it came right after Chocolate and Cheese. It seems like early for them to be doing this, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It's mostly performed by Nashville session musicians. I think each Gene and Dean play one guitar solo on it, and I think Dean sings maybe 1 or 2 songs, but so he's singing 1 or 2 songs and playing one solo. Gene is singing the rest and playing one solo. So really, it's a lot of session players. The playing's great on it. Sounds like classic, authentic Nashville country. The Jordanaires, known for singing backings on Elvis records or on the records, really gives it a great sound. They're on two tracks, I think. But yeah, the sound is authentic. The songs I think are great. It feels both earnest and loving while also like kind of taking the piss out of country music, maybe a little bit. And that's something they do very well. And I think maybe Never Better Than Here is kind of blurring that line. Piss Up a Rope is a fan favorite, I think, and kind of like the hit here. But I'm holding you. I don't want to leave you on the farm. Powder Blue, Help Me Scrape the Mucus Off My Brain, I think, are all kind of top notch tunes. I like all of those better than Piss Up a Rope. Yeah, there's just great playing, some good pedal steel and fiddle and all that kind of stuff. It's right up my alley. Um, so yeah, it's good. It's concise. It's their most focused. They don't really do anything other than country here too much. 10 tracks, even though it's 12 golden country greats, apparently or allegedly that 12 refers to the number of session players on the record. So I don't know, but it's good, very good. 4 stars, 12 golden country greats.
All right. That is my number three. I'm up to 3.5 stars. I think 12 Golden Country Greats is it's a fine album. I almost went 4 stars with it because there's a lot of cool stuff here. The fact that they got a bunch of real country musicians and they tried to get more, but some of them were like, it's a little little much for us, boys. But they rounded up a pretty strong team. I mean, getting the Jordanaires, that's pretty impressive. So it sounds great. Every instrument is played lovingly, excellently. Like these are top session dudes. Like these are, CMA All-Stars. Like these are some major players. And I love a lot of the pedal steel. I think some awesome playing on here. Love the dobros and the banjos and the mandolins and the fiddles and all that stuff. I think it sounds excellent. You still have some of the Ween poking through on songs like Piss Up a Rope, which I don't like. I think it's one of my least favorites on the album. But Help Me Scrape the Mucus Off My Brain is like just enough of being like kind of, you know, it's not a satire, but it's not something you'd hear from a country band, a country artist. So it's a little subversive. It's just enough. You get just enough juvenilia, just enough of the weenness, the brown sound, but it sounds really good. Like I can't not like it, even if scrape the mucus off my brain is kind of a dumb phrase. Like the pedal steel and the fiddle on here are just too good. So I'm gonna like it. And some of the more earnest songs, like You Were the Fool and I Don't Want to Leave You on the Farm, Powder Blue. I think they're just like really nice sort of homages to country with a little bit, a little weirdness, but they're pretty straight. And I don't want to leave you on the farm, like that fiddle and the harmonica and the pedal steel working in turns. It's really well made, arranged song. And I enjoy much of this album. I do not like Richard Smoker. That is a absolutely terrible song. Mr. Richard Smoker, excuse me. Excuse me, Richard. Mr. Richard Smoker. Not only does it sound completely out of place, it's just a bad song. So that was a mistake. Fluffy's a little weird. It's confusing to me, but I kind of like it because it's just so odd. Japanese Cowboy, it can be a little racist. Some people might say it's a little racist, but I think as a whole, there's enough of that Ween spirit, the brown sound. Well, not really the brown sound, but the brown spirit kind of coming through in the lyrics and the songs to make it interesting. And if you have this much pedal steel and fiddle and all that good stuff, I'm gonna like it. Would be 4 stars. I'm docking it a whole half star for Richard Smoker because I find it just I can't listen to it. It's an instant skip, so that hurts it. But a cool idea, cool subversive, you know, it probably turned off a lot of Ween fans when they came out with a country album, and I gotta hand it to them. That's a pretty alternative, stance, alternative take for them.
My number three is the Mollusk. And as far as the production and the sound go, this might be their best. There are some really cool, unique songs here, and the band expand into more of like a traditional band with a full five piece. The title track sounds great. I love that like fluty synth thing that's fluttering and giving the song that kind of underwater quality. Some of the vocal pitch shifting, which they had done before, I think sounds particularly good here and really fits and works well with the material. The album feels less jokey and more just like weird and conceptual. So I think that works, and it works in the record's favor. Dean and Gene have both said that it's their favorite, and it might have ended up being my number one, except for a few kind of clunkers for me. I really don't like Blarney Stone. I've said before on the channel that I don't really like Celtic music in a rock context, and I don't think it fits in on this record, and I think it sounds really harsh and terrible. The singing on it's bad, it's distorted, it just sounds awful, and I don't like it as a song. It's probably my least favorite track after the first three records. Also, Waving My Dick in the Wind, I don't know, that one's okay, but it feels out of place on the record, and I don't think makes sense with the other songs. So, yeah, I think the production's amazing and the high points are super high, but overall, the collection of material is a little spotty. But like I said, title track, incredible. Ocean Man, incredible. Cold Blows the Wind is great. I like Polka Dot Tail a lot. I think those are all just great, among the best Ween songs. So still at 4 stars, but yeah, pretty strong.
I was vacillating between 3.5 and 4 for my number two, The Mollusk. I think I'm gonna go 3.5 because, like most of their albums, it's torpedoed by a couple just annoying, over the top, out of place songs. I too hate the Blarney Stone. I got like a sea shanty kind of pub vibe from it, but the singing's terrible. It's just there's nothing interesting or good about it. I don't think Mutilated Lips is that great. I know everyone loves that song, but it kind of annoys me a little bit. Um, Waving My Dick in the Wind, I just don't need it. Pink Eye on My Leg, okay. But I mean, some of these songs just they don't really add anything to it, and it could be trimmed to the essentials, like The Mollusk, which, unlike the song about spinal meningitis, I think the back and forth kind of weird modulated vocals work. It's, thematic. It's very aquatic sounding, this whole album. It's kind of like bubbly and kind of mysterious, which is cool. The whole vibe of it is pretty unique. I think the second half is really good. Once you get past the Blarney Stone, it really, really picks up. I love Cold Blows the Wind. Buckingham Green is awesome, the way it builds into that electric guitar solo. Ocean Man's excellent. She Wanted to Leave is pretty cool. There's just some really cool, interesting sounding, well-produced songs on here. There's a bunch of crap, but um, enough on here that I'll give it a couple more chances to get to the 4 star mark because it is just so promising. I just don't, the Ween Brown sound stuff, I just do not vibe with at all. And it really kills like all of these albums, my enjoyment of them. So it's good, but it could be better.
All right. My number two, perhaps surprisingly, is La Cucaracha, which I expected to not like. I had heard that it was a big step down from the stuff before it, and I don't really understand why people don't like it that much. I thought the songs were pretty solid all the way through. They get back to their indie roots. They recorded in a farmhouse in their hometown in New Hope, PA. Maybe used a 4 track. Who knows? But I love the mariachi rock opener Fiesta. I think Blue Balloon is really quirky and cool. Object, I think, is the lyrics are, they're, you know, a little outdated at this point, but it's pretty funny. I like the country jaunt of Learning to Love. There's a sweet guitar freak out on With My Own Bare Hands, which also, unlike you, I do find some of it pretty funny. I thought that song was pretty hilarious. Sweetheart in the Summer, I think it's a solid pop song. And Woman and Man is just a 10-minute Latin flavored rock jam that feels like you're in attendance for Santana's set at Woodstock. It's just burning and some sick guitar. And then you get the last track, and David Sanborn comes out of nowhere with some sax. And yeah, I don't know. The only real misstep on this one for me is Fruit Man. The reggae tune I thought was not good. But all the other tracks I kind of like, and I found it to be a little less chaotic than some Ween albums, which I don't know. Is that the reason why people don't like it? Because it's not as crazy? Because I don't know. There's I kind of complained about White Pepper not being Ween enough. This one is kind of like one step more Ween than that. And I think that's kind of like the sweet spot for me. It's not their best sounding record. I can see some complaints about that, but it sounds good enough. Yeah, it's not like super hi-fi, but it doesn't sound bad. I don't think so. La Cucaracha, 4 stars still.
That's very surprising to me. My number one, though, in a walk, this is just a blowout for me. White pepper. I think people predicted this in the Discord, at least a couple. It's a little weird. It's not very weird, but it sounds great. It sounds big. It sounds full. It sounds like Ween just playing it straight, just relying on their strengths as songwriters, instrumentalists, surprising me with how good the vocals can sound, because I spent most of the discography just not liking what they were doing with their vocals almost ever. Supposedly inspired by the Beatles' White Album, but I think that's mostly, I don't know, false. I don't think they're very truthful when they talk about stuff like that. There's a couple moments of Beatlesiness, but it's just a big kind of rock album. And I think it starts off really well, exactly where I'm at. Has a tasty drum groove. Appreciate the playing, the drumming, the bass, everything on this album. Kind of weird singing, but as soon as I put it on, I was like, okay, this is like right up my alley. It's melodic. There's like this psychedelic haze to it. There's a squealing guitar solo that's, messy, but it still sounds good. And as soon as I heard that song, I'm like, all right, this could be the one. This could be the 4 star that breaks this streak of crappy albums that I never want to hear again. And it kind of just gets better from there. Even if you don't, has like a McCartney-esque strut to it. It's very pretty. It's a little silly, but it doesn't seem forced to me. It just seems like a couple goofy guys making a big rock album. Even the white guy reggae of Bananas and Blow, I think it works. It's a takeoff of Jimmy Buffett. You got the requisite female backing vocals. It's a big kind of, tropical party, but they're singing about bananas and cocaine, and it's a little bit subversive, and I like that. It's not too much, it's just enough. Stroker Ace, I think, is a good metal, Motorheady kind of takeoff. Just a great guitar riff there. Back to Basome, one of my favorite in the whole catalog. I love the pedal steel. I love those Beatlesy Fool on the Hill recorders, kind of big and almost progressive. And the weird stuff like Pandy Fackler it's kind of messed up, but like it's just not as messed up as some of their other stuff, some of their older stuff. Like they rein it in enough to make it like still listenable while being a little bit weird on it. And I think that the album ends really strong. Falling Out got some cool pedal steel on there, and I don't know. It's probably their most straightforward album. It definitely is their most straightforward album. It's their least juvenile. It's probably the least brown sounding. And maybe just it was an oasis in the desert of the brownness that made me like it even more. But I went back two, three times, three, four times. I just think the playing, the songwriting, the guitar work, the drums, the bass, it's the only album from them that I would legitimately find myself wanting to listen to again. So I think it's a strong four-star album. And yeah, I liked White Pepper a lot. And I can only say that about White Pepper, but at least we got one four-star out of it. That's all that matters.
You can't not get to 4 stars with the band. I feel like you always get there.
Well, I mean, there's a couple I haven't, but most of these big major bands have at least one good album.
Well, the last one left for me is Quebec, which missed my top 25 in 2003. I did have it at 4 stars. I didn't bump it up from 3.5. It was just one of the ones just on the outside of the top 25. It starts a bit weirder than White Pepper. It comes in with that like Motorhead-esque rocker, and then that's followed by Zoloft, which sounds like a Casio keyboard's bossa nova preset. And so those first 2 tracks, don't love them. But then Transdermal Celebration really gets things cooking. I think that's a great rock song. Of course, has the whole lore of Dean sneaking into that like storage space to record with Santana's guitar, which is cool. Tried and True is great. I love the pitch down vocals on that. You get some legit acoustic ballads like Among His Tribe, brushing shoulders with oddball tunes like So Many People in the Neighborhood. There's some cool psychedelic guitar work on Captain. Chocolate Town, I think, is like a classic sounding pop song with a slight country feel to it. I Don't Want It is great. If You Could Save Yourself, I think is a really, really strong closer, maybe the best closing track in their catalog. Overall, I just think it does the best job of showcasing all of their different sides and making them work cohesively. I don't think there's another album of theirs that has the really like classic pop sensibilities and writing with also like some tunes with some weird pitched vocals and weird psychedelic stuff and their odd humor that feels as cohesive and of one thing as this one does. All the other records either feel like they're leaning too heavily in one area or they feel too scattered. This one, I think, gets the recipe just right. And I think that's what makes it their best record. Still 4 stars for me, though. They're like a 4-star band. After those first 3 not so good records, they're pretty much like living in 3.54 territory for me. So not my favorite band. No 5s, no 4.5s, but I think very, very solid pretty much throughout.
I don't share that sentiment, but there's a lot of great tracks, I will say. Definitely more of a songs band for me than an album. I just wouldn't want to sit through most of these albums again, but I would listen to Ocean Man a whole bunch of times and be totally fine with it. So
Yeah, probably more songs band for me too, actually. All right. Well, let us know what you think of our lists and what your own list is by leaving us a comment. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, check the video description for a link to our Patreon and our social media and stuff like that. And we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.